Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new Rapidi live webinar. Our topic today is about global operations, and we will discuss how Rapidi handles multi-entity setup. So I'm Sirine, I'm a sales consultant. I'm here with my colleague Andrea. She's our senior data integration consultant. So let's go with today's agenda. So what we expect today. We will start with a welcome and introduction. Then we will go through the business challenge with multi entities. Then Andrea will guide you through the myths and misconceptions on how to solve it. We will discuss how Rapidi handles multi entity setup. And we will go through the key success factors. We will also discuss some common scenarios and examples. Stay tuned till the end. We will have the actionable checklist, which is really useful for everyone. So stay till the end so that you can know more about it. And of course, we always have the Q&A session. So feel free to write all of your questions and doubts in the chat, and we will go through all of them. Andrea will answer everything in the end of the session. So I would like to start by who we are and why data integration matters for your team. So first of all, I will start by presenting myself. As I said, I'm Sirine. I'm working at Rapidi as a sales consultant. I'm experienced in sales and nurturing customer relationships since 2014. I like to prioritize understanding what companies need to improve their data integration by connecting their systems in a way that supports their goals. So I'm based in Barcelona and I'm passionate about every kind of art. Now I'll let you present yourself, Andrea.
Great, thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Andrea. So I am an integration consultant here at Rapidi. I've been in the IpaaS world since 2017, so it's been a while. My focus is, of course, on Dynamics, 365, Salesforce, HubSpot, or other systems that need to be integrated. I am island based and I do enjoy going to the beach, and also I enjoy watching sunsets. Back to you, Sri.
Great, great, Andrea. Thank you. Okay, so let's start by a short introduction of Rapidi so that we know who we are and what we do. So first of all, we have over 30 years of data integration expertise. We have started back then when Microsoft was called Navision a long time ago. So the founder and CEO of Rapidi was working at Navision, and this speaks about our expertise in the Microsoft side. We also started working with Salesforce since 2007. Of course, we are also Salesforce partners. So we not only integrate the systems, but we also know them very well. So we do integrate Salesforce, Microsoft, HubSpot, NetSuite, many others. We have worldwide coverage of customers through different industries. And we are offering a flexible, simple, and complete solution. The solution that we offer is based on a cutting edge cloud technology, and it's really easy to set up, doesn't require any kind of programming, and it's also flexible to match your needs. When we say that at Rapidi, we always go the extra mile for our customer, it's because we are offering an outstanding support, which is included within the subscription. So we will not only give you access to the tool, we stand by you and help you during the journey. And we are having amazing customer references and these 5 stars in AppExchange and through other platforms also because the solution is working well and we are offering the needed support for it. So that's it for this part. Now we will go through the business challenge and I will explain what's the business challenge with multi-entity setup that costs your team time and money. So we will discuss some problems that all of you know too well. So first one, you will have deals, quotes, and orders landing in the wrong legal entity and native connectors have no root and logic. In some cases, also the group P&L and your CRM forecast will be telling different stories at every month end. Some intercompany reconciliation eats finance hours chasing misrouted records. And every new legal entity means rebuilding the integration from scratch. So if we take a real world scenario, we can discuss about an enterprise or a multinational, which is using D365, which is running every subsidiary deal into one hard-coded company and fixing misrouted orders by hand manually every end of the month. So after doing the integration with Rapidi, every deal will be routed to the correct legal entity automatically, and intercompany reconciliation went from days to clean. So let's go to the next topic. Back to you, Andrea.
Thank you. Okay, so right now we'll cover myths and misconceptions, and these refer to what people think about multi-entity integrations. So let's take a look at the first list of things. Okay, so the first I would say misconception is that every legal entity needs its own separate integration project, which of course this is something that many people think that it's true, but it's not really true, because then if you build your integration from the very beginning in the right way, then you can reuse the same logic across all legal entities. Of course, within the same integration you can have each legal entity with its own settings, but this means that you are going to set up this once, and then everything else can be added on top of it. So imagine that you do not have to go through a separate project every single time, and you don't have to build an integration for every single legal entity. So that's really important, because when you set up an integration and you have logic in place that would cover all your legal entities, then it's just expanding what you have, not rebuilding. Then another one is that a native CRM ERP connector can handle a multi-entity setup. Unfortunately, there are many native connectors that don't have a routing logic, or if they have, it's pretty basic. And the idea is that when you use native connectors, then it's more a one-to-one relationship, meaning you have one company in your ERP, and then whatever you have there, you send it to your CRM, right? When it comes to Rapidi, we do identify which entity we should use, and then where should these records go, right? Because if you have 3 legal entities in your system, then we can route the right records to the right legal entities. So this means that you will be getting the company-specific information, right, in all of those instances. Another misconception is that routing records to the right entity needs custom developers. So sometimes when we think about multi-entities, and when we think about companies that have many legal entities in their ERP, people tend to think that, oh, this has to be custom, this has to be something that is really complicated, but it's not. When it comes to Rapidi, we do have, I would say, mapping templates that we offer to customers, and then together with that, we set up the entity routing, right? So that we know that if you have more than one legal entity, you'll have that logic set up, so that moving forward, your data is sent to the right company, and we don't have any type of issues around that. So in the end, you don't need any kind of technical knowledge, or you don't need to do any programming. You just need to set up your mapping templates, use them, and then connect your systems accordingly. Next one, I think we have, okay, so I would say here we have, so 2 companies mean 2 separate CRMs. So one CRM, for example, or let's say HubSpot, which is very much used, can serve every legal entity. You don't really need, you don't spin up a separate system or account per company. One platform will run everything, right? So then, for example, one very common scenario is where companies have one CRM, let's say they're using Salesforce, HubSpot, and then within their ERP, they have 5 legal entities, because they have 5 different companies that they need to use. In that case, of course, you do need to send data from all those 5 companies to your CRM, but the CRM only has one instance, right? So in that situation, you don't need to go into that conversation and say, oh, we just need a separate instance for each one of them, so then we keep this one-to-one relationship. No, you can have one-to-many. It means that having the routing logic in place, you can always transfer data from all those 5 companies to your CRM and the other way around. It's just a matter of setting up the right routing in place, and then as soon as you do that, then data will be sent correctly to the right company, I would say. And then a shared customer appears once across your entity. So by default, if you are using, for example, native connectors, then the same customer will be created multiple times per legal entity, right? Because you can say, I have this customer, and this customer exists in all my 5 companies in my ERP. So when you have a standard setup, then you will see that customer 5 times in the CRM, because you don't really have any kind of routing in place for that. What happens is that in Rapidi, you can configure the integration in a way that you create a master record and then link the other ones to the right company. So then you create a relationship between those customers, and then you can ensure that you do not create duplicates, and you don't have so many customers right in your CRM that you don't even end up using them. Then the last one is, well, if the vendor says it, does intercompany out-of-box routing is handled. So when we talk about out-of-the-box, it usually means that we have just a one-to-one relationship, like I mentioned before. So it's like this company, right, from my ERP, and then the CRM instance. But when it comes to Rapidi, then each record would be routed to the correct entity via the configuration. So no custom code. So like we don't need to dive into complex and really technical things. For that, it's just a matter of a configuration that's being done when you set up the integration. And then when you do that, then you are good to go, and you can reuse the same setup for many legal entities in the future. I think that's it.
Yeah, that's it. So next topic is how Rapidi handles multi-entity setup without building a new project. Also for you, Andreea.
Yes. So when it comes to Rapidi, we want to focus on the main point, and that is one service, multiple connections. So what this means is that each company will have its own connection within Rapidi, but of course, data will be transferred accordingly for each of those connections. So it means to have one, let's say, big integration that's being set up, and within that integration, each company will have its own connection and let's say specific parameters. The next point is that when you have multiple legal entities and you have built, let's say, the integration for the first one, you can reuse the transfers or the data flows for the second one, for the third one, and you can continue like this, right? So you can use the field mappings, the filters, or anything that you have already set up on the first company setup. The idea is that when you already have the setup in place, then you can reuse everything and you do not need to start from scratch. You don't need to go back and say, okay, we have to configure everything again. No, you just reuse it, and then you adjust the setup according to the second, the third, or the fourth legal entity. And then another important thing is that within Rapidi, you'll have per entity scheduling and filtering. So it means that you can schedule your data flows per legal entity. So if you want to transfer data, let's say every 10 minutes for a specific legal entity, you can do that. If for the other legal entity, you want to transfer data every, let's say, 2 hours, you can do that. So they will be independent in that sense. And then filtering, of course, will be applied to each legal entity, because you can have different legal entities, and each one of them will have specific things, right? So maybe they're like country specific requirements, so you can set up filters separate for each one of them, but they will all be based on the same setup, right? So the setup is the same, it's just what's special, right, for each of those legal entities. And a very important aspect is that there's one place, just one place to monitor everything. So when you want to look at your integration, you just go into Rapidi and then you'll see the logs, the errors, the schedule, so everything in the same place. And all your legal entities will be there, and all your data flows will be running from that specific place. So then it's easier for you to see what's happening, how things are running, and then have a good overview of all your, I would say, configurations.
Great. Okay. Now we'd like to tell you the key success factors. So, what global organizations should look for when choosing a platform. So, these are advices from our side, what we think that you should prioritize. So, first point is built-in entity routing, no code. So native connectors have no routing logic. They push every record into one hard-coded company. So you better choose a platform that identifies the right legal entity and routes each record there automatically. It's better if it's configured by your team, not developers. Second point, scales to new entities without rebuilding. So, when it comes to adding a legal entity, it should mean adding its settings, not a new integration project. So, Rapidi is always reusing one integration definition across every entity, each with its own company, currency, and item codes. Last point, connects every entity backed by real support. So regional or acquired entities often run different or legacy ERPs. So Rapidi connects cloud, on-premise, direct SQL, and legacy Dynamics can be NavX, backed by personal or in-house consultants at 97% satisfaction. So not chatbot queues. So Andrea will guide you through some common scenarios of multi-entity setup and some real examples.
Okay, so here we have quite a few examples, and these are real examples. So things that I have seen at least on some of the integrations. So this first scenario would be so Salesforce and Dynamics 365 Finance. And the specific scenarios is about the RMA cases, which are being routed to the correct legal entity. So the example here is that this is a company that's using finance as their ERP, but they have multiple legal entities within that ERP. And then what they do, they handle customer returns and RMA requests in Salesforce. And then these RMAs are being handled as cases. And the idea here is that when the return is approved, then a written order has to be created in finance, right? So they have to see all that information. And without the right routing logic, then the orders might land in the wrong entity, or you might not even get that order in your system. So this means that this will create issues with regards to your intercompany reconciliation at the end of the month. So how we manage this? So Rapidi is able to identify which ERP entity processed that specific order, and that will be routed to the right company. So then you have the RMA request in Salesforce as a case, and that case is being sent over to finance, to the right entity, and it will create a written order with all the information that they needed. So then what happens is that then the teams will be able to see the written order in the right entity, and the status is written back to Salesforce so that the Salesforce users can have full visibility over that, right? Because they still need to work on the case and make sure that it has been resolved. And then, of course, as a result, as I mentioned, then both teams have visibility over what has happened, right? So then the teams that have access to the ERP, they will be able to see the written orders with all the information, the right legal entity. So then reconciliation is clean. And then the Salesforce users, they don't really need to leave Salesforce because all the information is written back into Salesforce and they will be able to move forward with that specific case. So
Mhm.
that's one of the examples. Let's see the
Mhm.
next one.
Yes. Next one.
Okay, so here another example that I have seen. So it's about Salesforce CPQ and Business Central, and here it's more about routing quotes to the right legal entities. So, for example, here this company was using Salesforce CPQ, and then of course in Business Central this company had multiple legal entities. And the sales teams were working mainly in Salesforce because that's the place where they would build and approve all the quotes. Now, the problem here is that as soon as the CPQ quote is approved, then this one has to become a sales order and it has to land in the right Business Central entity. And when we talk about native connectors, that's complicated there because a connector wouldn't be able to handle this for all legal entities. Wouldn't be able to have a more complex, I would say, routing logic. So it means that it's mainly a one-to-one relationship. However, how we manage this, so what we did, Rapidi runs the same integration logic for all legal entities, right? Of course, within the same setup, each legal entity has its own settings because there are some country-specific things that need to be included. Now, when the data flows are running, then the approved quote then is being transferred to Business Central, and when the data is being transferred, then it also goes through the routing logic, and then it will be sent to the right company in Business Central. And then the result is that the approved quotes will become orders with all the information in the correct Business Central company. And then users don't need to go through any manual work or any kind of intervention, right? Because then everything is there. And this means that they will not have any kind of misrouted revenue in that regard.
Mhm. Next one.
Yeah, so this one, which is very, very common, I would say, because Salesforce and Business Central is a very, I would say, common combination,
Mm.
and people and companies want to integrate them. Here, the use case that I have seen is that they have closed won opportunities, which are being synced to their ERP. Now, usually companies use the Salesforce opportunities, they work on them, and then as soon as they are closed, they want these opportunities to become orders in the ERP so that the team there will be able to process them. Now, when an opportunity is closed, then that specific revenue has to be recognized in the correct Business Central company. If you don't have a routing logic, obviously you can have issues in that area because then they can land somewhere else and then you don't know where they are, or maybe they don't even get there, right? So this means that your forecast will be really impacted by it. Within Rapidi, so we handle this. So what we did here is that again we ran the same integration logic for each legal entity. So when we had this integration set up, then we apply the routing logic for all legal entities to ensure that each one of them will display the right data, right? Customers, opportunities, and all that. So then by having this routing logic in place, then the closed won opportunities would be visible in the right company, and then teams will be able to see all the necessary information. Now, as a result, the closed won opportunities are being sent to the right company in Business Central. The revenue is recognized, which is really important for that specific company. And then everything is aligned in terms of the Salesforce forecast at the end of the month. And that's it. Let's see the
HubSpot.
yeah, so here, and this one is also really quite interesting, and
Yeah.
it's becoming very, very popular, I would
Mm.
say. So in HubSpot, there are deals, and these deals would be usually sent over to the ERP as sales orders. So here, this scenario that I have seen is the company that has multiple legal entities in Business Central, of course, having just one HubSpot instance. So the process was that when the deal was closed, it had to be sent to Business Central, and be able to actually see all the information there. And as I mentioned, if you go through native connectors, that's complicated because, of course, the routing logic is not, I would say, something available, by default, right? So then them would be just a one-to-one relationship. But with Rapidi, then the integration has been set up again in a way that it supports all connections for all companies. We did include the routing logic for all of them, and then had specific settings for each of those legal entities. So then everything was done like this, so that the customer can expand the integration and add more legal entities in time. So, so then in this case, they didn't need to rebuild anything. They just added more and more legal entities and reused the same setup. As a result here, for this specific scenario, is that the deals would land into the right Business Central company. And then that allowed them to actually be able to process the orders fast and not having to worry about issues around the forecast or reconciliation at the end of the month.
Yeah. One more.
Yeah, so this one is, I think it's really good because here, I mean, I see companies that really have this scenario. So in this case, we have HubSpot, of course, and then we have finance as the ERP. And then the use case that I have seen is about creating customers across multiple legal entities. Now, this company had one HubSpot instance and 5 legal entities in finance. So the idea is that here, let's say a new customer that is created in HubSpot, this one would trade with only, let's say, 3 out of 5 entities, right? Not all of them. So the customer team didn't really want to create records which are not needed, right? So they just wanted to create those customers that they really trade with, right? So when you have this type of need, then it's I would say it's impossible to achieve it via a native connector. Now, now I will explain a bit, how we actually did this. So the master customer or the parent customer would live as a company in HubSpot. When the team identifies which entities this customer will trade with, they will create a linked record per entity. Think of it as a child record. On that child record, they would specify the legal entity that this needs to go into, right? So you can say, okay, we have this new customer, and this one is needed for the first, I would say, legal entity. So they would do that, and then what happens is that Rapidi will pick up that specific entry, create the customer with all the information from the parent company in HubSpot, right? And then write back the finance customer number into that specific entry. Now you would have a parent company and then a child entry, which is actually the finance customer number. Then when they needed the customer to be created in the second legal entity, they went through the same process. They just selected the legal entity that needs this customer. Rapidi picked up that information, created a customer with the same information in the second legal entity, and sent back the finance customer number. So now they would see the parent company, and next to it they would have 2 child records, each one of them having a legal entity and the relevant customer number. So this one was a clean way, I would say, so that you can see the customers that you have in your finance system, right? And then it's something that can be easily maintained in your CRM, and then it will allow teams to have visibility over what has been happening there. And of course, you have just one customer view. You can see you have, I would say, a selective customer creation in finance, and then quotes will always be routed correctly because, of course, they would go through those specific child records. I think
Mhm.
that would be it for this part.
Yeah, yeah, I think this is the last one. Yeah,
Oh no, we have another one. Okay, so
yeah. Another one.
this, yeah, so this one is also really interesting. So this is more like CRM to CRM. So
Yeah.
so for example, we have seen like international groups that have regional subsidiaries. For example, they operate in different countries like Germany, Spain, so on and so forth. But each one of them would have its own CRM. So each country has its own CRM. And the headquarters would run a master Salesforce org, right? So that they can have their own group forecasting. Now, the problem here is that when each subsidiary has its own CRM, then that means a lot of manual work and a lot of spreadsheets. So then you
Mhm.
don't have up-to-date forecasts, things are inconsistent, and really you don't know what's the current situation on those specific accounts. Now, when it comes to how to handle this, what Rapidi is doing is that it will sync the data from each local CRM into the master org every 15 minutes. So this means that whenever there's something updated in one of the CRMs, then that information will be sent over to the master, I would say, CRM.
Mhm.
So then everything will be set up accordingly. So then records are being tagged by entity. Accounts will be matched on a specific primary key, and then you will avoid duplicates or any inconsistencies. So the result is that you will have up-to-date sales pipeline. You have visibility over everything that you have in your CRMs, and then of course you avoid that situation when the sales reps will contact the same client or doing the same thing at the same time, because now
Mhm.
everything is connected and everything is up to date, so users can focus on what they really need to do.
Yeah, great. Okay, time for the actionable checklists that people were waiting for. So, 5 steps to get started today.
Okay. So here, really important when we have more than one entity, I would say, is to actually have in mind the rollout of those entities. So first, map your entities and systems. So think about the companies that you want to integrate, right? If you say, I have two companies, two legal entities in my ERP, and I want to integrate them both, but I want
Mm.
to start with the first one now, then it's good to start with the routing logic from the very beginning so that you expand moving forward. And then the same thing applies to CRMs. If you're using CRMs or other systems, also think about them. Okay, how many instances you have, how you want to handle this, right? And how should the integration run? It's better to do this as step one, because then you will be able to build an integration correctly, and an integration that will be able to be reused by the next legal entities that you will create, for example. Then step number two, find the duplicated work. So here,
Mm.
look at your current processes and see where you have a lot of manual work, where people just do a lot of manual work and things that are not really productive. So look at that, and then that can be an opportunity for the specific integration. If, for example, you have opportunities in Salesforce, those are being managed there with all the information, and then someone goes into the ERP and creates the order manually, completely separate, then that's an opportunity for the integration. So it means that you can automate it so that users don't have to go into the ERP and do it manually. And then there are many other examples that you can look at so that you will eliminate that and allow the integration to do that for you. Then step number three is configure your first entity. So if you think that, for example, you will integrate three legal entities in time, then the first thing you need to do, start with the first one, set it up, include the routing logic in there, and then in the future reuse it for the other ones. But of course, start with the first one and make sure that everything is set up accordingly, because this will give you the opportunity to reuse everything for the next ones. Then step number 4, if you want to go to the second legal entity or the third, you can replicate the setup. So you can add a new connection to that specific instance, reuse the transfers, and then adjust anything that's required, and that would be it. In this case, you will not have, I would say, a new integration, a new league, a new project, I would say. That's really not the case. You just expand what you already have. And then last but not least, you can scale and monitor centrally. You can go through your rollout plan in time and add more and more legal entities, because you already have the basis, you already have the right setup in place that allows you to build on top of it. So then you can scale at any point in time, and you can monitor everything from the same place. So your integration will be, so everything will be in the same place, and if you have 1 or 10 legal entities, they will all be there. So you can have an overview within Rapidi with regards to what's running, how things are going, and then which are the legal entities that you have already configured. So I think this would, in a nutshell, the steps.
Thank you, Andrea. That was very clear. Okay, time for the questions, your best part. So we have good questions. I've been looking at the chat and we're having some interesting questions. So let's start with the first one. Someone is asking, do you support custom objects or only standard? Because we have a specific ERP dimensions. What happens when we upgrade Dynamics, add a field or change a process? Does the integration break then? If so, what do we do?
Okay, so the first part, custom versus standard, then for us, there's really no difference. You can use whatever you have. You can use custom fields, custom objects, custom tables, doesn't really matter. The only important thing here is to have access to those, right? Because access is provided via the connection that we set up. So
Okay.
you don't need to worry about that part. It's just a matter of access. Everything else will be available. And then when you upgrade Dynamics or change a process, of course, when you change a process, it means that this can have an impact on your current mapping. So the mapping might need to be adjusted. So it's just within the same integration. If you upgrade Dynamics in the sense that you move away from, let's say, from the vision and you go to Business Central, then that would be, I would say, a separate project in that sense. However,
Okay.
even though it's a new project, you can still reuse the current setup. Okay, it's just adjusting the setup to Business Central and to what you have in that system.
Okay. Clear. Okay. Let's go to second question. So someone is asking if sales edits a customer's address in the CRM and someone from finance edits in the ERP the same day, who wins? Wow. Okay. So is the sync bidirectional, and how do you stop the two systems from all overwriting each other? Okay.
Yeah, so usually when you want to sync data between two systems, you have to think about the system that will be like winning at all times,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Okay.
Because you cannot say, okay, I want this to be synced both ways and have this overwriting happening at all times, because that's not
Okay.
really feasible. What I would say usually is, okay, choose the system that is the, I would say, main source of truth,
Okay.
right? And then send that information from that system to the destination. And then from the
Mm-hmm.
destination, you can also send data, but you have to think which is the relevant data that should be updated. Like, for example, if you have an ERP and CRM, in your ERP, for example, you would have like the customer information, like the address or maybe contact information that can be sent to the CRM. In the CRM, you can have CRM specific, I would say, elements that can be sent over to the ERP. And in any case, when you want to sync data back and forth, you always have to rely on a unique key, right? Because you have to rely on something that's unique. And you should not rely on, I don't know, email addresses or other information. But I think my recommendation to customers is to think very well about, you know, how they want to sync data, especially when it's both ways, because you do have to make sure that each system will update specific information into the other one.
Great. Okay, one more question. So, when we connect an entity that's been live for years, does Rapidi backfill or migrate the existing records, or does it only sync from go live forward?
Okay, this is a very good question. So,
Yeah.
when you connect, when we connect to an entity that has been running in production for years, we can go back in time and bring over any data that you have. For example, if you have a company that has been running for 5 years and you say, okay, I want to go back to let's say 2025 and bring over all my customers from January 2025 until today. So we can do that, bring over all the data to your system, and then as soon as we have that done, we continue with what you have on a daily basis. Or if you want to go even more back in time, like get this full load of data, we can also do that. And it's something that we do with some of the projects where customers say, oh, we need to do this first, bring over the data from the last 2 years, and then we go to the day-to-day, let's say, new records or customers. So yeah, we can definitely do that. And also if migration is needed, that's something that we also do if customers need it, and we have done it in the past.
Great, Andrea. Okay, I don't see more questions. So we will start wrapping up for today. So thank you for watching. Thank you for people who will watch the recording also. It's really helpful for us if you can give us a feedback about the webinar. It can be a feedback about how we are doing it, or if you have new suggestion about new topics or whatever. It's always welcome. So you have the link here. You'll also find the link in the chat and in the comments. If you need more information, you can visit our website. You'll find the solution overviews. There are a lot of case stories about different systems and customers from everywhere with different stories, and you'll find fact sheets. And if you want some technical documentation, you can visit the wiki. If you look for something and don't find it, reach out. We will be happy to send you whatever you need. You can also follow and connect on our social media, LinkedIn, X, Facebook, Instagram. There are some interesting videos on YouTube also. And as I said, if there is any information you don't find, we will be happy to look for it and share with you. We invite you to book a free demo if you have a project or you're interested to see how Rapidi is working. So you can request the demo through the link. You can also reach out to us with your whatever time slots are available, and we will give you an appointment. And of course, you can download your free checklist here. You also have the link. And that's it for today. Thank you for watching, and we hope to see you soon again. Goodbye.